Welcome back to the BrianBeatty Real Estate Show, Halloween edition. So I want to lighten the mood a little bit. I want to tell you a story that's, it's not necessarily funny. It's kind of funny, but I was talking with another agent, and so this is not my story, full disclosure here, but an agent on someone else's real estate team, this is their first deal. They're showing a buyer a house, and he's never sold a home before, but a buyer walks into the property with their agent, and they are met by the seller of the home. And really, sellers are not supposed to be at showings for a variety of reasons. I'm not going to get into that, but anyways, the seller is there at the door, handgun on his hip, which made the buyer nervous, made the agent a little nervous, and it's just uncomfortable in the first place. But then the seller goes on to say, I'm going to be in the garage during your showing. Do not come into the garage. I'm avoiding an arrest warrant, and I will be armed. And so the agent and the buyer are like, okay. So they walk through this house, and of course, the buyer loves it, and they want to make an offer. So they make an offer, they get it under contract, they start going through the process, and here we are a few days before closing, and the buyer does a final walkthrough. You do a final walkthrough to make sure that, nothing has happened to the house right before you buy it. God forbid a tree fell on the roof, or the seller hasn't moved out all of their stuff, or maybe they took the washer and dryer, but they were supposed to leave it in the house. All these things have happened again and again and again. But in this particular instance, in this story, they go to the property. Everything in the house is cleared out. Everything looks good. And so, hey, I get to go and see the garage for the first time. So they open the door to the garage. Can't get in. It's not locked. It's barricaded. It'll open about an inch, and then it hits furniture or whatever else was behind the door. And then the seller yells and says, I'm armed. Do not attempt to enter the garage or I'll shoot. And so here we are. This buyer's trying to buy this house. Everything has been arranged. The moving truck is on the way. They've already left the other house that they were living in. And this seller was so paranoid that he was going to be arrested that the agent, the listing agent, the person representing the seller, had to personally go over there and pack up the seller's garage, put it into a moving truck that he had to pay for, and move the seller out. By the way, all of which was done at gunpoint. The seller was so crazy, so adamant that someone was out to get him that he held a gun on his own agent the entire time. And the buyers didn't see the garage until like an hour before closing, and everything was fine in it. But, I love selling real estate. I just don't know if I love it enough to be held at gunpoint to pack up someone's garage. I think that's going to be a no for me. I don't think that that one deal is worth that potential consequence. But hey, that's just me. I'll go above and beyond. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think my wife or kids would appreciate me being held at gunpoint. I think there was probably a different way of handling that, and it's called 911, but that's just me. So anyways, just trying to lighten the load a little bit here, but there are some other things that I want to talk through and some situations that have occurred really over the past year or so that I think you guys need to be aware of. These are all things that are situational. These are things that come up from time to time that should be learning experiences from agents. Sometimes these agents keep making the same mistakes. Ultimately, a lot of these folks get out of the business. But I'll tell you, there was a house that we sold this year, and I won't give specifics necessarily as to where or how much and so on and so forth and who the other people were, but this house was previously on the market with another real estate agent. And it went under contract after a few months, and it seemed to be a good deal, and it came time for the home inspection. Home inspection found some things, specifically some termite damage, old termite damage, underneath the house. We see this all the time. We also see high moisture readings because we just live in a very humid environment. And so, and obviously termites like to live there. So does mold. So anyways, the inspection occurs, a repair request is generated as a result of it. And this is something that I'm really passionate about is the way in which contracts are written, because this is where, if agents are not experienced, it can really have a negative impact on their clients. So the repair request from the buyer said that all repairs were to be done by a licensed contractor to the buyer's satisfaction. And so the problem with to the buyer's satisfaction is that there really is no definition of that other than the buyer has to give their stamp of approval. So what do you think happened? They go, they make the repairs, the buyer looks at it and they say, I'm not satisfied with the repairs. Nothing's wrong. It's been signed off on by a contractor. Everything has been done above board. It was all legit. But the buyer, because they had that ambiguous language in their contract, was able to cancel that deal because, as the seller found out later, they found another house down the street and they went and they bought that one. Even though the seller made the repairs in accordance with the repair addendum, because of that ambiguous language, quote unquote, satisfied with repairs, buyer has to be satisfied with the results of the repairs. The buyer was able to get out of the deal, and there's really nothing that the seller could do about it. So I see, we've had a few versions of our real estate contract over the years to try and address this very issue, which is ambiguous language in contracts. There needs to be very clear expectations about what happens when a buyer and a seller agree on something like repairs. And so there's a specific addendum that's supposed to be used, and the language is just incredibly important. And in this particular example, the seller had made the repairs, and they'd already packed up and they'd moved. I mean, all their stuff was out. And this is not a small home. This was about, I think, a 4,000 square foot home that we sold. So that agent got fired. We got hired. We took them through the process. We got it sold. Everything was fine. But I see this happen, unfortunately, quite a bit, where people are not being coached through the process from the time that a contract is signed. For a lot of sellers, they think, hey, the contract's signed, so long as this inspection turns out okay, then this is pretty much a done deal. And that's really not the case. So you really need to be careful about when you decide to make the decision, or when you make the decision to start packing up your things and moving. In my opinion, I'm not going to give the green light for you to start putting a down payment on a new place, or maybe you're moving somewhere to go rent for a few months before you buy in a new state. I don't want you packing up your stuff and then committing to a place to live if I can't give you reasonable assurance that this deal is going to close. And contracts have several contingencies baked into them. We have to get through those things before you start making major moving decisions and plans and investment. And so there's just another example of the agent that you hire, in my opinion, has to be experienced. You think about all the for sale by owners that are out there that are representing themselves in the course of a transaction that haven't seen these types of issues before. They haven't been exposed to them. You can apply common sense and you can use the help of the closing attorney, but if you don't have a real estate agent that's been through this before, it can be a really challenging and frankly really heartbreaking and costly endeavor for you, when the aim, of course, was to save money. And so when we come back, we're going to talk about a few things that happen when you sell your home for sale by owner, maybe throw in a few more quick stories. All that and more as the Brian Beatty Real Estate Show Halloween edition continues right here on the Big Talker, 1250 WTMA and WTMA.com. And remember, if you want to reach out to me to talk about your real estate needs, whether it's something you want to do here in the next few months or it's something that you're planning on doing summer, fall of next year, we'd love the opportunity to have the conversation and just walk through the process with you. My number is 843-400-8009. That's 843-400-8009. Or visit us online at listingsincharleston.com. That's listingsincharleston.com.